Savage alien queen's daughters vanished, only to be found listening to a human's war stories. Jasper Cade cataloged 17 ways to kill someone with the chair he was bound to before his captors even opened the door. The metal restraints bit into his wrists. His ribs ached where the ambush had caught him. 6 soldiers moving through the frontier sectors, then plasma fire erupting from positions that shouldn't have existed. He'd watched his team die in 30 seconds. Watched and survived because Martinez had shoved him behind cover with her last breath. The door opened with a hydraulic hiss. 3 figures entered. Crithian, pink skin that caught the harsh lighting, white hair cascading past shoulders built for violence, feline ears tracking every sound. They moved with predatory grace that made intelligence photos look like children's drawings. The tallest entered first, carrying authority that didn't need announcement. She stopped 3 meters away, just outside the range where his legs could become weapons. Smart. The second followed, studying him like a specimen. The third prowled in with her hand near the blade at her hip, eager and untested. The tall one spoke in galactic standard. "You are a prisoner of the Crithian Empire, human. I am Sivara, first daughter of Queen Vorsenna. These are my sisters, Kelith and Rin. We extract tactical intelligence before your execution." Jasper met her amber eyes. "Name, rank, and serial number. That's all you're getting." Rin laughed and moved forward. Sivara stopped her with 2 raised fingers. "Pain is crude," Sivara said, "useless against those trained to resist." "To understand," Kelith said, stepping closer. "Your species is weak, physically inferior, your weapons adequate but not exceptional, yet you fight. Why do your people fight wars you cannot win?" Jasper smiled slightly. "Have you ever heard of Thermopylae?" Sivara's eyes narrowed. "Is this a human military installation?" "No, it's a story about 300 soldiers who held a pass against hundreds of thousands." Rin snorted. "Propaganda. Maybe. Or maybe you've never understood what strength actually means." Silence stretched. Sivara should shut this down, but her head tilted. "Tell me this story." Jasper shifted in the chair. 2,500 years ago, an empire called Persia decided to conquer the Greek city-states. They had numbers, maybe 1 million soldiers. The Greeks had 7,000, fewer as allies abandoned them. But there was a place called the Hot Gates, Thermopylae, a narrow pass between mountains and sea, maybe 15 meters wide. Persian numbers meant nothing there. Kelith leaned forward. "Terrain advantage." "Exactly. King Leonidas of Sparta took 300 of his personal guard and held that pass for 3 days. The Persians sent wave after wave, elite troops. They died in piles so high the bodies had to be cleared before the next attack." Jasper could see it, the heat and blood and screaming bronze of shields locking together. The sun was hot enough to crack stone, the smell of the sea mixed with copper and fear. Shield walls held while men died standing, their brothers stepping forward to fill gaps. 300 Spartans backed by a few thousand allies, fighting until spears broke and they drew swords, fighting until swords shattered and they used hands. Rin had stopped smiling. For 3 days, they held. The Persian king couldn't break them, couldn't flank them because of terrain. He threw his best troops into the grinder and they died like everyone else. "How did it end?" Sivara asked quietly. "A traitor showed the Persians a mountain path. They flanked the position. Leonidas sent most of his army away to fight another day. Tactical decision that saved Greece. He kept his 300 and maybe 1,000 others who refused to leave. They fought until surrounded, until weapons were gone, until they could only use hands and teeth." Jasper met Sivara's eyes. "They all died, every single one. The Persians won that battle." "Then why tell this story?" Rin demanded. "Because Persia learned something. They learned that some walls can't be broken by numbers alone, that 300 soldiers who refuse to break can do more damage than 100,000 who fight because they have to. The Greeks rallied, Persia went home, and 2,500 years later, people still remember the Hot Gates." Kelith's eyes were wide. "Your species builds legends from defeats." "We build lessons. Thermopylae taught us that terrain matters, that discipline beats chaos, that sometimes the only way to win is to make the enemy bleed for every centimeter until they decide the prize isn't worth the cost. Sivara opened her mouth. Alarms screamed through the facility. Emergency lighting flooded red. Sivara's hand flew to her wrist communicator. Keleth spun toward the door. Rin drew her blade. Jasper heard shaped charges breaching security doors several corridors away. Something exploded close enough to rattle the chair bolts. Sivara's face went pale. "Report," she snarled into her communicator. The response came in rapid Crithian. Keleth translated, voice tight. "Lord Dranix has launched an assault. Detention sector shields are offline. Our guards are scattered or dead." Another explosion, closer. The door buckled inward, metal shrieking. Rin positioned herself between her sisters and the door. Keleth found her weapon. Sivara's eyes swept the room, calculating deteriorating odds. Then her gaze locked on Jasper. He saw the moment she made the decision, weighing protocol against survival. "If I free you," she said, "you'll run. Or you'll fight with us." "Maybe." The door exploded inward. Smoke and fire filled the corridor. Voices shouted. Boots hammered metal decking. Sivara's hand slammed the release. The restraints opened. Jasper rose, rolling his shoulders, feeling blood return to his hands. 3 hostile princesses, unknown enemies in the corridor, no weapons, no backup. Martinez's voice echoed, "Get home, tell our story." He looked at Sivara, at the warrior princess who just made the most dangerous decision of her life. "Give me a weapon and I'll get you out alive." Her hand moved to her hip. For a heartbeat, he thought she'd refuse. Then she drew a knife from her boot and tossed it. He caught it without looking, fingers finding the grip naturally. "Deal," Sivara said. The first attacker burst through the smoking doorway. Jasper moved. The attacker came through fast, plasma rifle raised. Jasper was faster. He moved inside the barrel's arc, drove the knife up through the soft tissue beneath the jaw, and twisted. The Crithian's eyes went wide. Jasper caught the rifle as the body fell, checked the charge indicator, 60%, and fired twice into the corridor beyond. 2 more attackers dropped. "Move," he barked. Sivara grabbed Keleth's arm. Rin was already running. They burst into the smoke-filled corridor, Jasper taking point because he had the only ranged weapon and no illusions about Crithian nobility slowing down for a human. The detention sector was a maze of identical corridors. Jasper read the architecture like a language, support columns every 6 meters, ventilation ducts at ceiling level, emergency lighting indicating power conduits. The Crithians built for strength, not tactical flexibility. Every intersection was a fatal funnel. He cleared the first junction, dropped an attacker trying to flank from an access tunnel. The plasma rifle kicked different than human weapons. Lighter, the recoil more pulse than push. "How many?" he asked, not looking back. "Dranix commands 3 battalions, Sivara said, her voice steady despite running. "Maybe 1,500 soldiers." "Fantastic." Keleth moved up beside him at the next junction, her own weapon ready. "You fight like you've studied our facilities." "I fight like I've studied every facility. Architecture is just applied geometry." He fired around the corner, suppressing movement he'd heard but not seen. The plasma bolt struck a support column and superheated metal sparked across the corridor. "Where did you learn this?" Keleth asked. "Practice." They pushed forward. Rin brought up the rear, her blade wet with blood from a soldier who tried to grab her. She moved with feral efficiency, all instinct and violence. The corridor opened into a larger junction. 4 passages converging, bodies already cooling on the floor. Royal guards, judging by the armor. Dead defending their princesses while said princesses had been playing interrogator. "We need to reach the command sector," Sivara said. "Secure communications." Jasper shook his head. "That's where they'll expect you. Where would they not expect you?" Sivara's eyes narrowed, then widened slightly. "The archives, independent power, reinforced doors, communication access. That's where we go." They moved. Jasper's tactical mind overlaid the facility layout from the brief he'd studied before the mission went sideways. Archives would be lower level, away from primary targets. Dranix would secure command first, then hunt for the princesses. It bought them time. An explosion rocked the corridor ahead. Jasper pulled up, raised a fist. The three sisters stopped instantly, trained soldiers recognizing battlefield signals despite species differences. He listened. Plasma fire, distant. Crithian voices shouting orders. The fight was moving away from their position, sweeping toward the command sector like he'd predicted. "We're clear for now. Move quiet." They descended through maintenance shafts Jasper suspected the princesses had never seen. Kelleth watched him navigate with increasing fascination. "You predicted their tactical approach," she said. "Not hard. Your people fight like you build, direct, overwhelming force. Subtle isn't in the doctrine." "And human doctrine?" "Or die." They emerged in a lower corridor, cleaner and quieter. Archive sector. Jasper approached the security door, checking corners while Savara entered her access code. The door slid open with a whisper of hydraulics. Inside, banks of data storage stretched into darkness, emergency lighting casting long shadows, maps, battle plans, historical records, the accumulated knowledge of an empire built on conquest. Rin collapsed against a storage unit, breathing hard. Her earlier bravado had worn thin. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Until they finish with command and start hunting," Jasper said. He was checking the plasma rifle's charge, 40%. Not enough for sustained contact, maybe an hour. Kelleth moved to a terminal, fingers flying across controls. "Communications are jammed. I can't reach Mother's Guard." Jasper set up a defensive position near the door, dragging storage units to create cover. It wouldn't stop a determined assault, but it would slow one down. Savara watched him work, then joined in without being asked. She was stronger than him. The units he struggled with she moved easily, but she followed his arrangement without question. "You've done this before," she said. "Too many times." "Tell me." Jasper glanced at her. They had time to kill, and silence would just breed anxiety. "You heard of Dunkirk?" Kelleth looked up from the terminal. Even Rin opened her eyes. Savara said. Jasper settled against cover, rifle across his lap, eyes still scanning approaches. 1940, Earth. Human war called World War II. British and French forces got cut off by German advancement. 400,000 soldiers trapped on a beach with their backs to the ocean. Enemy closing from all sides. No way out. He could see it in his mind, had walked those beaches during academy training. The military had ships, but not enough. Not nearly enough. They'd save maybe 30,000 if they were lucky. 400,000 men were going to die or be captured. "What happened?" Kelleth asked. Civilians happened. Fishermen, merchant sailors, weekend yachtsmen, anyone with a boat that could float. They got a call that their army was trapped, so they crossed the English Channel, sailed into a war zone, and started ferrying soldiers off that beach. Jasper checked the rifle's charge again, habit more than necessity. Fishing boats designed for calm water crossing through German artillery fire. Pleasure yachts dodging dive bombers. They ran back and forth for 9 days, pulling men off that beach a dozen at a time. By the end, they'd saved 330,000 soldiers. Rin sat up straighter. "Your people sent fishermen to fight a war. We sent fishermen to save an army. There's a difference." Savara was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Your military commanders ordered this?" "No. The call went out and people just came. Shop owners and school teachers, grandmothers and teenagers, they looked at an impossible situation and decided impossible didn't matter." "That's insane," Rin said. "That's human?" Kelleth abandoned the terminal and moved closer. "Your species shouldn't work. You're individually weak, short-lived, genetically fragmented, but you accomplish things that shouldn't be possible." "Because we don't accept shouldn't," Jasper said. "We look at the universe telling us no, and we find the loophole." The building shook, distant explosion, multiple levels up, the Coup forces were securing territory. Savara checked her own weapon, then looked at Jasper. "Why are you helping us?" "I gave my word. To your enemies. To soldiers in a bad situation, enemy is just a word people use to justify killing." Rin laughed, sharp and bitter. "You could have run. Multiple times in those corridors you could have disappeared." Jasper met her eyes. "I could have, but I've run before and it doesn't fix anything. Movement outside the archive door. Jasper raised the rifle, Savara positioned herself behind cover, Kelleth drew her blade, Rin stood despite her exhaustion. The movement passed, patrol, not hunters. They breathed. "Tell us more," Savara said quietly, "about your people." Jasper settled back against the cover. "That's a long conversation. We have time." Outside, the Coup forces swept through the facility. Inside the archive, 4 soldiers from 2 different worlds waited for the hammer to fall. Jasper began talking, his voice low and steady, telling stories of impossible victories and glorious defeats, of humans who looked at the universe and refused to blink first. And 3 Crithian princesses listened like they were hearing music for the first time. Rin's breathing had gone shallow an hour after they'd barricaded themselves in the archives. Jasper noticed first. Combat medic training kicked in before tactical assessment. He crossed to where she'd slumped against a storage unit, peeled back the makeshift bandage Savara had applied. The plasma burn scored across her ribs, edges cauterized, but the surrounding tissue angry and swollen. "It's fine," Rin said through gritted teeth. "It's infected." He looked at Savara. "Medical supplies. Archives don't have full kits, maybe basic first aid." Kelleth was already moving, searching storage compartments with methodical efficiency. She returned with a container marked in Crithian script, handed it to Jasper. He opened it, cataloged the contents by sight and smell, antiseptic analogs, synthetic tissue bonding, analgesics that might work on Crithian physiology. "This'll hurt," he said to Rin. "Everything hurts." He cleaned the wound with steady hands while she hissed but didn't pull away. Her skin was warmer than human normal, the muscle structure beneath different but recognizable. He'd treated enough alien physiology in joint operations to adapt. Savara knelt beside them, watching his hands move with surprising gentleness. "You're a medic." Every Special Forces operator is. You learn to keep your team alive when extraction is days away. He applied the bonding agent, watching it seal and contract. Rin's breathing eased fractionally. "Thank you," she said quietly. Jasper met her eyes. Younger than her sisters, but old enough to have seen violence, to understand mortality. "Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this." He moved back to his position by the door. Savara followed, settling beside him close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The ambient temperature had dropped as life support diverted power to critical systems, and body heat mattered in tactical situations. That's what he told himself. "Why do your people fight when you're so weak?" she asked. The question again, but different context now, not interrogation, genuine curiosity. Jasper was quiet for a moment, listening to the facility's distant sounds. Plasma fire had ceased. Either the coup had succeeded or reached stalemate. "You want the tactical answer or the real one?" "Real. Because we don't have a choice. Humanity has always been one disaster away from extinction. Ice ages, pandemics, wars, famine. Every few generations, something tries to wipe us out. We're still here because we're too stubborn to die quietly." He checked the rifle charge again, 32%. "Tell me about Berlin," Savara said. Jasper glanced at her. "Why that one?" "Because you started to mention it earlier, before the alarms." He had. The fall of Berlin was a story he carried like shrapnel, pieces lodged too deep to remove. 1945. End of World War II. The Soviet army was closing on Berlin, 2 million soldiers surrounding a city that had already been bombed to rubble. German military was broken. Leadership was in bunkers preparing for suicide. Should have been over in days. Kelleth had stopped working at the terminal, listening. But the civilians stayed. Teachers, shopkeepers, grandmothers, they picked up rifles from dead soldiers, learned to fire them in minutes. They fortified apartment buildings, turned city blocks into fortresses. Not because they had any chance of winning. They knew it was over, but they fought anyway. "Why?" Rin asked from her position against the storage unit. "Because surrender meant something worse than death. Because their homes mattered. Because when you've got nothing left to lose, dying on your feet beats living on your knees." The words hung in the recycled air. For 2 weeks they held, ordinary people against professional soldiers. They died in their thousands, but they made the Red Army bleed for every street, every building, every room. By the end, both sides were fighting in darkness because there was no power left, just muzzle flashes in the smoke. Sivara's hand rested near his on the rifle stock, not touching, but close enough that he felt the warmth. "Your people were conquered," she said. "Many times we've never stayed conquered. There's a difference between losing a battle and accepting defeat." Keleth moved from the terminal to sit with them, forming a rough circle in the emergency lighting. "I've been accessing classified files while you talked," she said, "our initial contact assessments of humanity." She pulled up a holographic display, text scrolling in Crithian script. "Official evaluation, primitive species, limited expansion capability, negligible military threat. Recommended status, ignore unless they interfere with imperial interests." Sivara leaned forward, reading, "But there are other files. Deeper assessments. Listen to this. Human adaptive capability suggests potential danger if underestimated. Species demonstrates pattern of overcoming biological limitations through tactical innovation. Psychological profile indicates refusal to accept hierarchical submission. Recommendation: monitor closely but maintain public dismissal to prevent alliance formation with other species." Jasper felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Your empire lied about us." "About many species," Keleth said. "I'm finding similar assessments for the Talshur, the Morganae Collective, even the peaceful Viridian enclaves. Any species that might challenge Crithian dominance gets publicly dismissed while privately flagged as threats." Rin laughed, the sound harsh. "Our entire empire is built on lies." "Our empire is built on strength," Sivara said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Keleth challenged. "Because I'm sitting in an archive with a human who's kept us alive through tactical skill while our superior physical strength accomplished nothing. He's killed more Coup soldiers in 2 hours than we managed with all our training." "I had better positioning," Jasper said. "You had better thinking," Keleth corrected. "You adapted, we just reacted." Sivara stood abruptly, paced to the far end of their barricade. Jasper watched her shoulders, held too rigid, the posture of someone whose worldview was fracturing in real time. He rose, crossed to her. Keleth and Rin watched, but said nothing. "You're questioning everything you were raised to believe," Jasper said quietly. "Shouldn't I be?" Sivara turned to face him. "If my empire built its foundation on deception, what does that make me?" "Someone asking the right questions. My mother conquered 17 systems, subjugated 40 species. She calls it bringing order to chaos." "What do you call it?" Sivara met his eyes. In the emergency lighting, her amber irises caught and held the red glow. "I don't know anymore." The moment stretched. They stood close enough that he could see the subtle markings along her collarbone, could smell whatever Crithian used for cleaning their armor. Something sharp and organic. "The files say your species refuses hierarchical submission," she said. "What does that mean?" "It means we don't accept that anyone's born better than anyone else. You want respect, you earn it. You want loyalty, you give it first." "That's chaos." "That's freedom." Her hand rose, hesitated, then touched the scar along his jaw, the one that ran from ear to chin, pale against darker skin. "Where did this come from?" "Shrapnel, Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, insurgent ambush." "Tell me that story." Before Jasper could answer, Keleth's voice cut through. "We have movement, multiple signatures, 3 corridors out." Everyone moved to defensive positions. Jasper checked his rifle, 30% charge. Sivara positioned herself at the primary approach, Keleth covering the secondary access. Rin struggled to her feet despite the injury, blade in hand. The footsteps grew louder, organized, disciplined, not the scattered chaos of earlier fighting. Jasper's finger tightened on the trigger. The archive door shuddered. Once, twice, someone was breaching with cutting equipment, taking their time. "They found us," Rin said. "They were always going to find us," Jasper replied. "Question is whether they get through that door before we make them regret it." Sivara looked at him across the barricade. "If we die here." "We're not dying here." "But if we do," I wanted to say. The door exploded inward. Plasma fire erupted across the archive. Jasper pulled Savara down behind cover as bolts superheated the air where she'd been standing. "Tell me later," he shouted over the noise. She grinned fierce and wild. "Deal." Then there was only fire and smoke and the endless mathematics of violence. The first wave came hard, 12 soldiers pouring through the breached door. Jasper dropped 3 before they cleared the threshold. Savara caught 2 more with precision fire. Keleth created a crossfire that forced attackers to choose between threats. Bodies piled in the doorway. The second wave learned. They used corpses as cover, advancing in coordinated pairs. Professional work. Jasper rolled left as Plasma scored his cover. He came up firing, caught a soldier in the throat, dropped back as return fire chased him. His rifle charge hit single digits. Keleth pivoted, her blade singing as she closed with 2 soldiers breaching a secondary access. She moved like violence made flesh. 1 soldier dropped with his throat opened. The second caught her blade through his chest. But more were coming. Rin fought despite her injury, killing with her blade. A soldier twice her size rushed her. She ducked under his swing, opened his leg at the femoral, kept moving. Jasper fired his last 3 shots, dropped the rifle, pulled his knife. A soldier came over the barricade. Jasper drove the blade up through soft armor at the armpit. Twisted. The soldier fell. Another took his place. Savara was beside him suddenly, their backs pressing together as they held a corner. They moved like they'd trained together, covering, advancing, creating overlapping fields of fire. The Coup forces pulled back temporarily. Jasper's hands shook as adrenaline ebbed. 30 seconds before the next wave. Keleth bled from her shoulder but remained functional. Rin leaned heavy on a storage unit. Savara reloaded. "We can't hold another push," Keleth said. "We just have to make it cost more than it's worth," Jasper replied. Savara laughed, breathless. "Your species is insane. We prefer persistent." The moment crystallized, 4 soldiers surrounded by bodies, probably going to die in 5 minutes. "Why do you keep fighting?" Savara asked suddenly. "You could have surrendered." Jasper met her eyes. 2 years ago, my team got ambushed in the Proxima frontier. 6 of us, 40 of them. We fought to an extraction point. The shuttle could fit maybe 4 people. My CO, Captain Sarah Martinez, looked at me and said, "You're getting on that shuttle, Cade. That's an order." He reloaded while talking. She shoved me through the door. Then she and the others held the line while we lifted off. I watched them die, every single one. Martinez made me promise something before she pushed me. "Get home, tell our story, make it mean something. So when I see people who need help, I help, because I'm still paying off a debt I can never settle." Savara moved closer, her hand finding his arm. "You survive out of obligation?" "I survive out of love, for the people who gave me the chance. That's what home means, not a place. It's the people you die for, the promises you keep when keeping them costs everything." Keleth spoke quietly. "Our empire teaches that strength is dominance, that mercy is weakness." "You care about people you just met," Rin said. "People from a species you were fighting yesterday, and you're the strongest person here." "Yes," Savara said firmly. "You choose to protect. We were trained to conquer. There's more strength in that than we were ever taught." Footsteps in the corridor. The reprieve was ending. Jasper turned to face the door. Savara positioned beside him, arms touching. "If we survive this," she said, "I want to hear every story you have. That could take a while." "I have time." The door shuddered. Then something changed. The footsteps stopped, voices shouted in Crithian, plasma fire erupted, aimed back down the corridor, not at them. Keleth's communicator crackled to life. A voice spoke in Crithian, authoritative, cold, commanding. Keleth's face went pale. "It's Mother. The Queen's Guard has broken through. The Coup is collapsing." Battle sounds intensified outside but moved away, hunting the hunters. Savara's hand tightened on her weapon. She didn't sound entirely happy about being saved. Heavy footsteps approached. The Queen's Guard filled the doorway, elite troops whose armor bore the Queen's insignia. Captain Talrock swept the room with cold eyes. His weapon came up, targeting Jasper. "Step away from the princesses. You're under arrest." Rin moved between them despite her injury. He saved our lives. He's an escaped prisoner. Savara stepped forward with authority that had been tested in fire. Captain, I invoke my right of custody over valuable intelligence assets. I claim this prisoner under my personal authority. He will be housed in royal quarters pending my interrogation. Talrock's weapon didn't lower. The Queen will never approve. The Queen will hear my report and decide. Until then, this human is under my protection. The standoff held 3 heartbeats. Talrock lowered his weapon. As you command, Princess. They were escorted through corridors showing the guards' violent advance. Jasper walked among them, technically prisoner, but treated with cautious respect. Savara walked beside him, equal positioning that spoke volumes. Nobles and guards watched them pass, whispers following in their wake. Savara's quarters were warriors' rooms, weapons on walls, tactical displays, personal touches, books in multiple languages, a window overlooking the capital. The guards positioned outside, the door closed. They were alone. Savara poured 2 glasses of amber liquor, offered him one. You're still technically my prisoner. Technically. They drank. The liquor burned, tasted like smoke and flowers. Tell me more, Savara said, about everything, your people, your wars, your stories. She moved to sit, gestured for him to join. He did, close enough that their knees almost touched. That's going to take time. Then we trade, my people's history for yours. Deal. She smiled, and it transformed her face from warrior to something softer, more dangerous. Tell me about home, real home. So he did. He talked about Earth. Mountains and oceans, cities that grew like forests, deserts that taught humility, about humanity's stumbling steps into space, about colonies that failed and succeeded. She listened, asking questions, sharing stories of her world in return. Her hand found his somewhere in the telling, fingers intertwining naturally. Outside, the palace recovered. Inside, something more dangerous than rebellion was beginning. 2 people from different worlds, learning that the space between species was smaller than anyone believed. The night deepened, stories continued. And in a room overlooking an alien capital under 2 foreign moons, Jasper, Cade, and Savara discovered that some walls were meant to be crossed. Dawn broke over the Crithian capital in shades of purple and gold, 2 suns rising to paint the palace walls with light that seemed almost gentle after the violence of the night before. Jasper stood at Savara's window, watching the city wake. Behind him, she moved through her quarters, fastening formal armor. The Queen summons us in 2 hours, Savara said. She'll want explanations. What will you tell her? The truth, that a human prisoner saved her daughter's lives, that everything we've been taught about inferior species might be a comfortable lie. Jasper turned from the window. Savara stood in full formal armor now, looking every centimeter the warrior princess, except for her eyes. Those held questions armor couldn't protect against. That's going to complicate things. I know. She crossed to him, close enough that he caught that sharp organic smell beneath the metal. Her hand rose to touch the scar along his jaw, fingers tracing the line. Tell me one more story before we face her. Jasper caught her hand, held it. My hometown on Earth had this tradition. Every year, they'd light candles for soldiers who didn't come home. Hundreds along the main street, each one a name and a memory. After Martinez died, I went to that ceremony, lit candles for my team, and I realized the lights weren't beautiful. They were necessary, because the dark is always there. The only thing keeping it back is people willing to stand in the gap and hold a light. That's what you've been doing, Savara said, holding a light. She moved closer, their bodies almost touching. It means everything. She kissed him. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was decision made flesh. Her lips tasted like the liquor they'd shared, like alien chemistry that somehow worked. Her hand slid to the back of his neck, pulling him closer. His arms went around her waist, feeling the heat of her skin through gaps in her armor. They broke apart after a moment that felt both infinite and too brief. I needed to do that before politics made it complicated. It's already complicated. Then a little more won't hurt. The armor came away piece by piece, Beneath it she wore a fitted bodysuit that left little to imagination. His tactical vest followed, then the shirt beneath, exposing scars that mapped a career of violence. She traced them with her fingers, each one a question he answered. They moved to her sleeping platform, exploring each other, with the care of people who understood that bodies were weapons, but could be something softer, too. When they finally came together, it was with intensity born of knowing this might be their only chance. They made it count, made it mean something beyond simple pleasure. After they lay tangled together, her head on his chest. "This changes everything," Savara said quietly. "I know. My mother will call it weakness. What do you call it?" She raised her head, met his eyes. "Choice. I choose you. Whatever consequences come, I choose this." A knock at the door, sharp and military. "Princess, the Queen is ready." They dressed in silence. At the door, she paused. "Whatever happens, don't bow, don't submit. My mother respects strength." They walked through palace corridors, guards falling in. Keleth and Rin joined them, both cleaned up but showing strain. The throne room doors opened. Queen Vorsenna sat elevated on a throne built from conquered weapons. Her eyes swept the room and settled on Jasper with predatory focus. "You've caused considerable chaos, human." Jasper met her gaze without flinching. "Your Majesty, I survived an ambush, escaped detention during a coup, and protected your daughters. The chaos found me." Vorsenna's lips twitched. "My daughter claims you under personal custody. Do you understand what that means?" "That I'm valuable enough to keep alive. Traditionally, such claims were made for breeding stock or personal servants, and the palace talks, daughter. Your guards heard things through your door." Silence crashed through the throne room. Savara stepped forward. "Yes, I betted him. And I'll do it again, because he's shown me more about strength in one night than your empire has taught in my entire life. You built your throne on lies about inferior species while privately fearing them. I found the classified files. I know the truth." Vorsenna's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Careful, daughter, you border on treason." "I border on honesty. This human taught me that protecting others takes more courage than conquering them. Every story he told proved that humanity survives because they adapt. They refuse to accept limitations." Saivara moved to stand beside Jasper, equal. "You wanted strong daughters. You got them, strong enough to question, strong enough to choose our own path." Keleth stepped forward. "I support my sister. The human saved our lives." Rin joined them, limping but steady. "As do I. He bled for us." Vorsenna studied her daughters, these 3 warriors she'd raised to be weapons. "You would fracture everything I've built for a human?" "No, I would evolve what you've built, add his people's ingenuity to our strength, create something better than conquest." The throne room held its breath. Vorsenna descended the steps, stopped before Jasper. "What is your name, human?" "Jasper Cade, Special Operations, Earth Defense Forces." "Tell me, do you believe my daughter's infatuation is strategy or stupidity?" Jasper smiled slightly. "I believe your daughter is smart enough to recognize opportunity. Humanity wants allies, not enemies. We've survived everything by learning from others, adapting, refusing to accept that impossible means stop trying. You could wipe us out, maybe, but you could also learn from us. Your choice." Vorsenna's expression didn't change for 3 heartbeats. Then she laughed, deep and genuine. "You have courage, human. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Your claim stands, Sivara. He remains under your custody, but he will teach our military everything he knows about human tactics, and you will prove this choice was wisdom and not merely lust." "Thank you, Mother." "Don't thank me yet. If he betrays us, you'll be the one executing him." Savara's hand found Jasper's. "He won't." They walked from the throne room together. In the corridor, Rin grinned despite her injury. "You're insane, both of you." "Probably," Jasper agreed. They returned to Savara's quarters. Inside, she turned to him. "This is real now, not just a moment stolen from chaos. You're staying." "I know. It won't be easy." "I know that too." She moved close, her hands on his chest. "Then tell me more about everything. We have all the time now." Jasper pulled her closer. Deal, but I want your stories too, real ones, who you actually are. She smiled, fierce and beautiful. Deal. They settled together, watching the twin suns climb higher through the window. He talked about Earth's first rockets, about colonies on Mars, about humanity's scramble to spread beyond one fragile planet. She told him about Crithia's expansion, the real story, about warriors who questioned orders, about colony worlds that wanted independence, about cracks in the empire everyone pretended didn't exist. They traded truths like gifts, building something neither had words for yet. The door chimed. Keleth's voice carried through. The military council wants to meet your human. They're curious about these tactics. Savara looked at Jasper, raising an eyebrow. Ready to teach an empire new tricks? As long as you're there to translate. They rose together. At the door, Jasper paused. Thank you for choosing this, for choosing me. Thank you for showing me there was a choice. She kissed him once more, quick and certain. Then they stepped into the corridor. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and dangerous and full of possibility. Two civilizations learning to understand each other through two people who'd refused to accept that species meant enemy. Jasper Cade walked into that future beside Saivara, knowing that the stories they'd tell together would echo longer than any war. The Savage Queen's daughter had vanished into a detention cell and emerged with a human who'd taught her that strength came in forms her empire had never imagined. And in the space between stars, two species began the slow work of becoming something better than they'd been alone.